YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys have had a great time. The Ignite sessions were absolutely fantastic. I was actually in one of the sessions, the Into Security Focus. Yeah, I'm the guy in the back, not the guy with the shaved head, which people seem to think. So in this video, I want to show you how to master Azure Sentinels, sorry, Microsoft Sentinels automation orchestration response service within Sentinel itself. So grab that coffee, grab that whiskey, because you know it's going to get damn juicy. Also, drop a comment and a like down below. A subscribe really helps me and makes me feel good in the morning. Real good. Microsoft Sentinel mastering automation and response. The art of automation. So Jerry Kumo wrote a book on the art of automation, providing leaders, executives, and technical officers an understanding of how powered intelligence can help hyperscale digital transformation using automation. So this book is great. It talks about companies. He actually declares about companies. 2021 is the year of automation, and seeing automation as an essential part of how we address our normal. Now, I completely agree with this. In his book, he's got stuff on automation insurance, healthcare, and a very interesting conversation between Jerry and Don Scott, who's director of engineering at Submergence Group and the mastermind behind the Mayflower autonomous ship on automation at sea. Is great. The whole premise of the book is a practical guide for anyone who needs to understand and evaluate how automation technologies can transform their organization, business processes, models. So it combines both aspirational and pragmatic overview of automation technologies, its core capabilities, and the value they generate from a business perspective. It describes various real world examples, implementations, and approaches with industry specific use cases. So you're probably thinking, why am I mentioning this? Well, as he says in the book, automation is the future, and one day robots will take over the world and we will be forced to abide by their laws. He doesn't actually say that explicitly, but the points are still valid. For example, you know, an automation process, if it's running continuously for 100 days, doing the same task without human intervention, it's going to run more successful than a human running the same task 100 times. So, unfortunately, humans are lazy. That's just who we are. Um, and as artificial intelligence and programming goes, you program something to go do something, and it will do it until you say otherwise. That being said, there isn't an easy button for you to just go click and then bang, something cool happens. There's a lot of value that you're going to get out of a source solution like Sentinel. But Sentinel's automation and response isn't about blocking or necessarily stopping a process. This should have been done at the endpoint and antivirus layer. This is about enrichment and understanding how the adversaries got in. What was your weak point? Where did they go? What did they do? Did someone get in using someone's weak credentials, or did they get phished? If it was the latter, who do I have to shoot? So, that's the kind of premise that we go from with automation. The most successful operations I've seen working with customers is that a lot of them are already very mature in their cybersecurity, and they already have identified their workflows and analytics. So when it comes to building a playbook, they already know that from that single use case, how they're going to respond, how that response is going to be dealt with. The worst thing you want to do is automate a bad process, because you're only going to get a bad resolution. Oh no, a PowerShell process has used the syntax invoke web request. Let's run the automation playbook to isolate that server. And you've just gone and taken down your company's HR system because a developer was downloading some IIS files using PowerShell. That's an automation. That's an example of automating a bad process. So an example of a typical response would be like sending an email to the SOC team, posting a message in Teams or Jira, Slack, or integrating with ServiceNow. So these types of responses are great for first dipping your little toe into the orchestration automation part. These are also great for like the level one responders or for specific data source areas that need to be investigated, like an Azure AD captured an unusual operation. So that response would go to the identity and security team, which handles Azure AD activities. This then frees up time and resources for more in depth investigations and hunting for the senior forensic analyst. If you don't have all of these playbooks worked out for each analytic, don't panic. This is what automation rules are. We'll talk about them shortly. What I'm seeing from customers is that a lot of them have a team for different kinds of response mechanisms, for different kind of attacks or certain types of investigations or incidents. So every organization and every analyst within a SOC will approach every incident differently depending on the severity. So putting together a response for automation for analytics isn't really a straightforward process. And depending on the use case, you might want to come up with an automated workflow for that specific process, depending on the severity of that. So don't worry, Microsoft have got you covered. So Microsoft Sentinel helps you a great deal here when it comes to architecting an automated response. You have this great new thing called automation rules. I mean, they're not that new; they've been around for quite some time. But this is a concept in which the feature allows users to centrally manage all the automation of incident handling. So, besides letting you assign playbooks to incidents, not just to as alerts as it was before, automation rules allow you to automate responses for multiple analytics at once. So automatically tag, assign, close incidents instead of having the need for individual playbooks for that specific alert. And these kind of help you control the order of actions that get executed as well. So really cool stuff. So automation rules also streamline the automation process in Sentinel and help you simplify like complex workflows for your incident and orchestration processes. So whereas before automation rules came along, you'd build a playbook and it would have that full integration of send an email, post a message in Teams, do something in ServiceNow, all in one playbook, which made it extremely difficult to troubleshoot if something went wrong with that playbook or a service connection changed or something. So splitting those playbooks out into those individual tasks and then using those through automation rules is definitely something that's a lot better to manage for sure. And then you've got playbooks. So playbooks are what I've just talked about, are a collection of the remediation actions which you are powered by logic apps. So a playbook can help you automate and orchestrate your threat response. It can integrate with other systems, both internal and external, like ServiceNow. It can be run to set automatically in response to specific alerts or incidents when triggered by analytics or an automation rule retrospectively. Um, it can also be run manually on demand, which is great. So playbooks I just mentioned, are based on logic apps. So logic apps is a cloud service which helps you schedule, automate, and orchestrate tasks and workflows across systems throughout the enterprise. So this means that playbooks can take advantage of all the power and customization of Logic App's integration and orchestration capabilities, and you kind of have that easy to use design tools within a Logic App. That said, I've definitely talked a lot, so let's move from the slide deck to the actual demo, and we will talk through the orchestration, automation, and response mechanism with Microsoft Sentinel. So in the Azure Sentinel automation page under configuration, first let's understand the basics. So when we go to create an automation rule, we can call this a name, we can call this test, and then you have a trigger. So this is very important. So the trigger here is when an incident is created, okay, not an alert. So the playbooks have a few gotchas regarding triggers. So a trigger for an incident is when you receive an incident, and these can only be used for automation rules. So a trigger for an alert is kind of aimed at a playbook slash use case specific scenario, um, as these are intended for like alerts, and you want to run these manually as well. Um, Triggers that use an incident rule for playbooks cannot be used manually to trigger actions. Um, so I do have a sneaky suspicion that Microsoft will actually remove the trigger for an alert at some point, because in theory, you should really use automation rules for your playbooks for when an incident is triggered to get that more efficient and robust process, unless you have like some really specific use case that where you can need to carefully control a response. Okay, anyway, I digress. So let's move on. So then have conditions here. So here you can have the conditions if analytic rule contains, and then you can select all to do whatever you want to do. I'm just going to click security logs here for the minute, and then I'm going to add another condition here. So I'm going to add severity, and then I'm going to say equals, and then high. So I want to know when high severity secure. Sorry, I can't talk today. Just worked out, and I'm extremely exhausted. Um, so yeah, this analytic rule here is saying if the condition equals security logs and the severity equals high, then go do an action. So this action can be run a playbook, change status, change severity, assign owner, assign tags. So let's run a playbook here. This will give me a drop down of which playbooks have the incident trigger. So we have two send emails to me. So I'm going to select this send email, and then you have rule expiration, and then at the bottom here you have rule ordering. So this is basically saying automation rules will run in the order that is defined in the order filed. Each automation rule will be executed serially after the previous rules in ascending order. So here I'm going to change the order to 1 as well, and then this will run serially, so it will send the automation rule out in sequence is that one as well. So let me click apply on this. Okay, that's cool. So here you can see I've got two existing automation rules here. Now, if I create my playbook with, say, let's have a look at this one here. So send email. Okay, let me go back. I'm going to go active playbooks here. So let's click this one. I'm not going to dive too deep into logic apps because we could be here for quite a while. But there is some great material out there for creating logic apps. I just want to show you the capabilities and how easy it is to create these playbooks. So this is one that I've already created here. And if you go to Logic App Designer, it's obviously there's a lot going on here, but it can be much simpler. In fact, I will show you the much simpler one. Send an email. Logic App Designer, and it's this one here. Okay, so if we look here, we've got when an incident is triggered. So here we have a connection via an API service connection for Logic App here for secure, and then we have an email. Send it to me with another API connection to Craig at Cloud IT Pro. So if I go into my incidents page, this is kind of like a gotcha here. If I just go to incidents, 24 hours. Okay, let me do a custom range. Let's click OK. And then cleared security logs. This is the one I wanted. Then I'm going to go, when this finishes loading, view full details. Now I'm going to go to view playbooks here. Now you can see here that the playbook that we've just created, well, not just created, but has the send email, doesn't appear here. So this is something to be extremely aware of. So there is an outstanding question, which I do have with my customers. Do you create a playbook with an incident trigger or a playbook with an alert trigger? So for my methods, if you're going to be sending emails or integrating with ServiceNow, for every single incident that appears within the dashboard of Sentinel, then logic dictates use the automation rules within Sentinel when an incident is triggered. So every single analytic rule that you set up, have them use the automation rules to send that playbook. But if you have specific alerts or specific analytics which will, require a bit more careful analysis, then you want to create a playbook to handle that type of response. So you can, obviously shut down the VM, isolate the VM to an NSG, etc. So it's all about carefully analyzing how you are going to respond to that incident within your analytics. So you could have a VM gets compromised, every analytic gets a ticket, ServiceNow, Teams, or whatever. But also you can have the ability to actually go and manually run this. So I've been alerted from this. Okay, let me go check. Okay, for this severity playbook, I'm going to go run and shut this VM down. For instance, if it's domain controller, don't do that because that's stupid. Okay, so lastly, I just want to cover playbooks, the gallery. So we have active playbooks here. You can see status for enable, the actual trigger kind in here, which is cool, subscription, and then the resource group where the actual logic app it sits. And then we have obviously the playbook templates gallery. And this offers an extensive collection and very easy deployment experience. There's like more than 200 playbooks here to help you quickly automate your SOC processes and workflows for increased efficiency, ranging from like simple orchestration tasks to complex automated investigations. So you can literally just grab one of the workbooks, just go create workbook, give it a resource group, give it a name, parameters if needed. Obviously this one's a little bit more difficult. You're going to have to do a network object ID. Let me grab something a bit easier. Let's grab this GRL one. Okay, yeah, create a service now, create a API connection here, and then review and create, bang, easy. So very easy to do. You will notice that there is different triggers for some of the playbooks. So we just covered the triggers a minute ago. So this one here is a block, an alert for Azure AD, and there's also one for an incident. So if a playbook is available and you want to use it, make sure you know which one to pick. There's a huge gotcha as well, another one, love me some gotchas, regarding permissions. So you might want to assign to a specific members of your security orchestrations team the ability to use logic apps for automation response. So you can use the logic app contributor role to assign explicit permissions to use playbooks. For automation rules, Sentinel must be granted explicit permissions in order to run playbooks from the automation rules. If a playbook appears grayed out in the drop-down list, it means that Sentinel doesn't have permission to have that playbook doesn't have permission on that playbook's resource group. Also, if you put the drop-down list down and it doesn't appear, then it's obviously got the wrong trigger. You yourself also must have owner permissions on any resource group which you want to grant Sentinel permissions. You must also have the logic app contributor role on any of the resource group containing playbooks you want to run. In a multi-tenant deployment, if the playbook you want to run is in a different tenant, you must grant Azure Sentinel permissions to run the playbook in the playbook's tenant. If you're on MSFT, you want to run a playbook in a customer tenant from an automation rule created while signing to the service provider's tenant, you must grant Sentinel permissions to run the playbook in both tenants. So hopefully I've explained everything about the automation at a high level with Microsoft Sentinel. If I missed anything, I do apologize. So yes, thank you very much. Thanks for watching the video. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you don't, well, that's just fine. Please subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your nan. Cheers.